I had transmigrated into the body of Ethan Miller, the villainous male supporting character of a popular novel. However, by the time I arrived, there was absolutely nothing I could do to change the tragic trajectory of the plot. The story had already reached its bitter conclusion. I was the one blamed for causing the male protagonist, Logan, to lose his opportunity to take his college entrance exams. As a direct consequence, I was forced to kneel in humiliation by my two older sisters, Claire and Audrey. Claire, my eldest sister, struck me harshly with a heavy wooden stick. Her voice was devoid of any warmth as she ordered, "Kneel and kowtow 1,000 times before you even think about getting up." Audrey, my second sister, threw a bottle of pesticide right at my feet, looking at me with pure disgust. "People like you, who are so vile, deserve nothing but to die," she snarled. To their absolute shock, the next moment, I simply sneered at them. I picked up the bottle, twisted off the cap, and immediately gulped the entire bottle of pesticide down, as if it were nothing. Both of my sisters gasped, their faces turning completely pale with terror. They stared at me in disbelief and asked, "Are you crazy? Why the hell are you drinking it like a beverage?" I knelt on the cold, hard wooden floor of the living room, the biting chill seeping into my knees. My exposed skin was already covered in painful welts and dark bruises. Above me stood my eldest sister, Claire Miller, holding a heavy wooden stick, her eyes burning with an icy, unforgiving fire. Claire spoke in an eerily cold, detached tone that sent shivers down my spine. "Apologize to Logan right now, Ethan, or just find a way to die." Logan, the adopted brother who was the golden boy and the true protagonist of this world, quickly stepped forward, putting on a pitiful angelic act. "Claire, Audrey, please don't go and hit Ethan because of me," he pleaded, his voice trembling as he looked at our sisters. "I only lost my opportunity to take these SATs and go to my dream college. It's okay, I can just repeat the year, or I can even work part-time to pay for a local community college later. Really, it's fine, please don't fight." His words, wrapped in faux innocence, only served to stoke the flames of my sisters' anger. They were absolutely furious, consumed by a fierce protectiveness over their beloved adopted brother. Audrey, my second sister, who was wearing sharp high heels, stepped forward and ruthlessly kicked me in the stomach. The impact knocked the wind out of me, and I collapsed sideways onto the floor. "Apologize to Logan right now, you useless piece of trash," Audrey demanded, her voice screeching with disgust. I lay there, clutching my stomach, and sneered. I looked at the bottle of pesticide she had thrown at me earlier, which had rolled near my hand. So this was what it felt like to be a villainous NPC, treated worse than a stray dog by my own flesh and blood. I reached out, picked up the pesticide bottle, twisted the cap off with a decisive snap, and before they could even register what was happening, I gulped it down in one giant go. Audrey screamed in absolute horror, her face draining of all color. Even Claire, who pridefully maintained her calm demeanor at all times, was completely flustered, her hands trembling as she dropped the wooden stick. "Are you crazy?" Audrey shrieked, backing away. "Why are you drinking it like a beverage?" But I didn't die. It turned out that the greedy local merchant who sold the pesticide, wanting to maximize his profits, had watered down the poison to the point where it was practically harmless, save for a bitter taste and a mild stomachache. The next morning, Audrey stood beside my hospital bed. Her eyes were red and puffy, looking as though she had spent the entire night crying. She bit her lip and said, "I was just joking with you yesterday, Ethan. How could you actually drink it? When did you become so incredibly fragile?" I stared blankly at the ceiling, refusing to look at her. Fragile? The original Ethan wasn't fragile at all. He was a tragic, villainous character whose predetermined role in this story was simply to be a stepping stone for Logan and to die a miserable death. Just a few days ago, The original Ethan had tried to poison Logan's food with a laxative to prevent him from taking the SATs. But halfway through, out of fear of getting caught, Ethan had felt guilty and switched the food back to normal. Yet, Logan still pretended to have severe diarrhea on the morning of the exam, skipping it entirely just to frame Ethan. Logan was faking it the whole time, and my sisters fell for it hook, line, and sinker. "Why aren't you saying anything?" Audrey asked, taking a step closer. To my surprise, there was a faint hint of genuine worry in her eyes. In the original novel, Ethan had always found joy in tormenting Audrey, which led her to hate him with a burning passion. As they grew up, she targeted him constantly. She was a teacher at our school and had frequently accused him of cheating on exams without any proof, which led to our parents beating him mercilessly. I had no interest in playing along with her sudden guilt. Right now, I only wanted to find a way to die so that my soul could return to my own world. Audrey reached out and grabbed my hand, trying to force me to look at her. Annoyed, I shoved her hand away with all my might, sending her stumbling back and crashing onto the floor. "Get out!" I cold-shouldered her. Suddenly, the door burst open. Claire walked in, saw Audrey on the floor, and rushed over. Without asking a single question, she slapped me hard across the face. "Who told you that you could push Audrey?" Claire shouted. This was Claire, my eldest sister. She had always been quiet, cold, and indifferent toward me. Only after we grew up did she occasionally show a shred of kindness, but even that disappeared the moment Logan was adopted into the Miller family. Logan carried the male protagonist halo, and everyone in the family worshipped him while treating me like an outcast. Claire glared at me, her chest heaving with anger. "Ethan, you caused Logan to miss the most important exam of his life, and now you have the audacity to push your second sister? You are absolutely hopeless!" A hot wave of anger, belonging to the original Ethan, surged through my veins. The original Ethan had spent his entire life desperately begging for Claire's affection. He would wake up at dawn to make her breakfast, wash her clothes by hand, and polish her shoes until they shone. And how did she repay him? By making him kneel on the floor and beating him with a stick over Logan's lies. Summoning all my strength, I lunged forward, grabbed Claire by the collar, and shoved her hard against the hospital room door. The loud thud echoed in the quiet hallway. "What do you think you are?" I hissed, my eyes narrowing as I glared at her shocked face. "How dare you speak to me like that? Who gave you the right?" Just then, Logan appeared at the doorway, looking horrified, but secretly wearing a smug, triumphant smirk. "Ethan, how could you treat Claire like this? Let her go." Looking at his punchable, arrogant face, my irritation peaked. I let go of Claire, walked straight over to Logan, and slapped him so hard his head spun. "Who are you, an adopted outsider, to speak to me in this house?" I snapped. Without waiting for their response, I pushed past them and walked out of the hospital. I couldn't be bothered to deal with this toxic family anymore. I wanted out of this story. I headed straight for a nearby high-rise building, taking the elevator up to the 20th floor rooftop. I walked over to the edge, looking down at the bustling city lights below. Jumping from here would surely end this nightmare and send me home. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and prepared to step off the ledge. But suddenly, a strong hand grabbed my arm and violently pulled me back onto the concrete floor. I fell hard, scraping my elbows. I looked up to see a young woman standing over me. She had a delicate, small face, but her eyes were large, bright, and filled with deep panic. "Ethan, don't die!" she cried, her voice laced with desperate urgency. I stared at her, struggling to place her face. Then, the memories of the novel clicked. This was Grace, one of the original Ethan's high school classmates. In the book, she was a completely transparent background character who had only a single line, asking Ethan to help her carry some books. Grace knelt beside me, her hands still clutching my sleeve as if she was terrified I would try to jump again. "The world is still beautiful, Ethan," she said softly, her voice trembling. "We've just finished our high school exams, and we'll be going to university soon. Life is going to get so much better, I promise. You have to stay alive to see it." I wanted to tell her to mind her own business and leave me alone, but a strange, heavy warmth in my chest, the lingering emotions of the original Ethan, prevented me from speaking harshly to her. In the end, the only word I could choke out was, "Okay." Grace immediately smiled, her tear-filled eyes lighting up. "That's good. You have to keep that promise. I heard you were sick today, so I came to check on you. I'm so glad I did, or you might have done something terrible. Don't listen to how your sisters treat you. There are people in this world who care about you. You're not alone." She gently took my hand and led me down the stairs, bringing me to a small, cozy diner down the street. She ordered a comforting bowl of hot beef stew for me and asked the waitress to double the meat. "Life is all about eating good food and finding happiness," Grace said, pushing the steaming bowl toward me. "That's what true peace is." I picked up the spoon, touched by her warmth, and was about to speak when a sudden force slammed into my hand. The bowl of hot stew was knocked off the table, shattering on the floor and splashing all over my pants. I looked up to see Claire standing over us, her expression freezing cold. "I knew you were pretending to commit suicide with that pesticide," Claire sneered, crossing her arms. It was far too convenient that the poison was watered down. "Ethan, do you honestly think that by staging these pathetic stunts, you can make Audrey and me feel sorry for you? Let me tell you, it only makes me despise you more." Grace jumped out of her seat, shielding me. "Stop bullying him. He almost died today." I slowly stood up, gently patting Grace's shoulder to reassure her. I stared at Claire's perfectly made-up, arrogant face. In a split second, I grabbed a plate of leftover food from the neighboring empty table and threw it directly into Claire's face. A loud, messy smack echoed through the diner. "Didn't your mother ever teach you not to interrupt when someone is trying to eat?" I yelled, grabbing another handful of food and throwing it at her. Claire took a frantic step back, wiping sauce from her face in absolute shock and disbelief. I leaned closer, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Big sister, if you ever come near me or interrupt me again, I won't use food. Next time, I'll pour sulfuric acid right on your face." I smirked, picked up a loose piece of meat, and stuffed it into her mouth. "Can't even shut that mouth of yours?" Claire screamed in pure, unbridled rage. I felt a sense of vindication. The original Ethan had worked tirelessly to earn a scholarship, only for Claire to steal his hard-earned money and use it to buy Logan an expensive guitar. She deserved every bit of this humiliation. As I walked Grace back to her apartment, she looked at me with a soft, worried expression. "Make sure you change into dry clothes as soon as you get home, Ethan. You'll catch a cold if you stay in those wet pants." I nodded quietly. "Don't worry, I will." Grace stopped walking and looked at me, an inquisitive glint in her eyes. "Ethan, I feel like you've changed. The old Ethan would have never dared to stand up to Claire like that." I offered her a gentle, sad smile. "People have to grow up eventually, Grace. The original Ethan was meant to die in misery, but as long as my soul inhabited this body, I would make sure he didn't suffer silently anymore. I would fight back against every single person who had wronged him." After saying goodbye to Grace, I returned to the Miller house. To my surprise, Audrey was sitting on the living room couch, waiting for me in the dim light. I braced myself for another screaming match, but she looked up and spoke in a quiet, subdued voice. "Brother, we need to talk." I froze. It was the first time in years she had called me brother. Instead of my name or a derogatory insult, Audrey stood up and walked over to me. "I went to the store today. I bought that pesticide myself, which means you couldn't have set up a deal with the seller to water it down. You really wanted to die yesterday, didn't you?" "Ethan, Why? I let out a cold, cynical chuckle. Isn't it obvious, Audrey? You and Claire have targeted me, blamed me, and beaten me for years over Logan's lies. You've slowly stripped away everything I ever had. Anyone would lose hope in a house like this. Before she could speak, I turned my back on her and walked up to my room. I didn't want her belated guilt or her empty apologies. They couldn't undo the years of torture the original Ethan had endured. I locked my door, my mind set. If jumping off a building or drinking pesticide didn't work, I would try using gas tonight to end it all. In the dead of the night, when the house was completely silent, I quietly crept downstairs to the kitchen. I closed all the windows, locked the doors, and walked over to the gas stove. But just as I reached out to turn the valve, the kitchen door swung open, and the lights flared on. Logan stood there, a malicious, mocking sneer plastered across his face. Still trying to fake a suicide, Ethan? Logan taunted, stepping into the room. Are you trying to make Claire and Audrey feel guilty again? I've been watching you all day, just waiting for you to pull another pathetic stunt. Logan picked up a sharp kitchen knife from the counter, twirling it in his hand. Do you want to know what would happen if our sisters came in right now and saw me bleeding? Who do you think they would believe? I let out a dry laugh. I was so incredibly sick of his cliché, manipulative games. With a sudden burst of speed, I lunged forward, ripped the knife out of Logan's hand, and without hesitation, slashed a deep line across my own forearm. Blood instantly began to pour from the wound, dripping heavily onto the tiled floor. How about this, Logan? I smiled wildly, holding the bloody knife. One cut each. Let's see who plays the victim better. Logan stumbled back, his eyes widening in genuine, paralyzed terror. He had never expected me to actually hurt myself. I turned the gas valve on the stove, letting the hissing gas fill the room, and then poured a glass of water over the pilot light to extinguish the flame. How about we both die together in this kitchen tonight? I whispered. Logan completely lost his mind. He screamed at the top of his lungs, his voice cracking with sheer panic. Claire! Audrey! Help me! Ethan is insane! He's trying to kill me! Within seconds, Claire and Audrey burst into the kitchen. They stopped dead in their tracks, taking in the horrific scene, the kitchen smelling heavily of gas, blood pooling on the floor, my arm dripping red, and Logan cowering in the corner, sobbing hysterically. Audrey rushed forward, quickly shutting off the gas valve and opening a window. Claire, help me! Ethan is bleeding out. We need to get him to an ambulance right now. But Claire stood frozen, her eyes darting between us. Instead of helping me, she walked over to Logan and pulled him up from the floor. She glared at me with pure hatred. He tried to turn on the gas and murder us all. Audrey, why are you still trying to save this monster? Audrey snapped, her voice cracking with emotion. It's because of us, Claire. It's because we treated him like garbage for years that he's doing this. Look at him. Look at what we've driven him to. My vision began to blur from the rapid blood loss, and my legs gave out as I collapsed into the darkness. When I finally opened my eyes, the smell of sterile bleach filled my nose. I was back in a hospital bed, my arm wrapped tightly in thick white bandages. Audrey was sitting in a chair beside me, her eyes filled with exhaustion and worry. Ethan, please don't ever do anything like that again, she whispered, her voice cracking. If you're hurting, if you hate us, just tell me. We can fix this. Before I could answer, the door was thrown open and Claire marched into the room. Without saying a word, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face, reopening the stitches on my lip. If Logan hadn't screamed for help, were you really going to murder us all in our sleep? Claire shrieked, her face twisted in rage. Ethan, how can you be so utterly evil? I didn't hesitate. With a swift, fluid motion, I sat up and slapped Claire back with twice the force. The sound of the impact cracked like a whip in the quiet room. I believe in settling my debts immediately, I said coldly, wiping the blood from my lip. That's just who I am. Claire stumbled back, clutching her rapidly swelling cheek, her eyes wide with shock. She turned to Audrey, pointing a trembling finger at me. Do you see this, Audrey? This is the brother you're defending. He just hit his own eldest sister. Audrey looked at me, her expression a painful mix of disappointment and grief. Ethan, you really went too far this time. I've been trying so hard to stand by you, but you're still so stubborn and cruel. I burst into a fit of dark, mocking laughter. Did I ever ask you to stand by me, Audrey? Did I ever beg for your pathetic pity? The suffocating pressure of this world, combined with the stressful, agonizing memories of my past corporate life where my boss had driven me to the brink of collapse, finally caused my mind to snap. I reached over to the bedside table, grabbed a sharp fruit knife from a fruit basket, and without a second thought, slashed it directly across my own neck. Let's see who can go crazier, shall we? I roared. Thick, warm blood immediately began to pour down my neck, soaking the collar of my hospital gown and blooming like dark red roses on the pristine white sheets. Claire and Audrey froze, their faces turning completely white as ghosts. Oh my God, call a doctor! Audrey, get the nurse! Claire screamed, her cold pride vanishing as she rushed to my side, desperately pressing her hands against my neck to stem the flow of blood. Her hands were shaking violently. Ethan, you're insane! You're a literal madman! Please stop! As my consciousness began to drift, a flood of childhood memories that didn't belong to me rushed into my mind. I saw a younger Claire and Audrey, smiling warmly, holding a young Ethan's hands as they took him to get fast food on weekends and taught him how to play his first notes on the piano. He had been so happy back then, but everything changed the moment they adopted Logan. They gave Logan all their love, all their attention, and left Ethan in the shadows to rot. I felt a deep, profound sorrow for the original owner of this body. Suddenly, our parents rushed into the room, alerted by the chaos. My mother didn't even look at my bleeding neck. She immediately began to scold me. Are you trying to kill yourself again, Ethan? Do you have any idea how badly you've traumatized Logan? He is having a panic attack in the lobby. He is mentally broken because of you. My father spat on the floor in disgust, glaring at me. How did I end up with a pathetic, useless son like you? I regret the day you were born. A cold, calm rage washed over me. I violently ripped the IV line out of my hand, grabbed a glass vase from the table, and shattered it against the wall. Since you care so much about your precious adopted son, then go be with him, I yelled, my voice hoarse. Why the hell did you even come here? Get out of my sight. Terrified by my sudden outburst, my parents took a step back and quickly fled the room. Claire looked at the shattered glass and then at me, her expression turning into one of disgust. Ethan, even though we share the same blood, you will never be half the man Logan is. You are an adult, yet you constantly use suicide to threaten and manipulate us. You are completely useless. The word useless echoed in my head. That was the exact word the original Ethan had heard his entire life, the word that had finally driven him to end his life. Audrey stared at me, her eyes filled with cold disappointment. When we were kids, you pranked me constantly, and I thought you were the most annoying brother in the world. Now that we're older, I thought you'd finally understand. I tried to reach out to you, to show you sibling love, but you just won't listen. If you really want to die so badly, Ethan, then go find a place where no one will ever find you. Why do you always make sure we're the ones who have to find you? I let out a soft laugh. All right, next time, I promise I won't let you find out. Audrey choked on her tears, turned around, and walked out of the room, leaving me alone in the quiet, dim light. Just as I was preparing to pull the bandages off my neck and finish the job, the door slowly slid open. Grace stood there, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Didn't you promise me you wouldn't do this? She whispered, her voice breaking as she walked over to my bed. We agreed to go to college together, Ethan. We made a promise. My heart skipped a beat, a sharp pang of emotional pain radiating through my chest. I knew this wasn't my emotion. It was the residual feelings of the original Ethan, who had secretly loved this girl from afar. I looked at her and said softly, "Grace, you're a brilliant, beautiful girl with an incredibly bright future ahead of you. You shouldn't waste your tears or your time on me. I'm just a useless, broken person. I'm going to die sooner or later anyway." "You're not useless," she sobbed, shaking her head violently. She reached into her bag and pulled out a slightly crumpled pink envelope. "I've liked you for such a long time, Ethan. I'm giving you this love letter now because I'm terrified that if I don't, you'll leave this world and I'll never get to tell you." With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope and pulled out the handwritten letter. "Ethan, I don't believe in God, but the moment I met you, I started to believe. You are my God. Every time I look at you, I get completely lost." As I read her words, tears involuntarily slipped down my cheeks. Grace lunged forward, throwing her arms around my neck, holding me tightly. "Please, Ethan, please don't die. Live for me." For a brief second, I wanted to agree. I wanted to stay. But I knew these feelings didn't belong to me. If I didn't die, I would be trapped in this novel forever, never able to return to my real life. In this world, people are inherently selfish, and I had to prioritize my own survival. It was my birthday. Early in the morning, I received a sweet, happy birthday text from Grace. I smiled, feeling a brief moment of peace. I put on a crisp, tailored white suit. Today was the day. My family had arranged a grand birthday party for me on the rooftop of a luxury hotel, and I planned to use this gathering to say my final goodbye to everyone. When I arrived at the rooftop, I saw Logan standing near the bar. He was also wearing a white suit, but his was from a far more expensive designer brand than mine. It was laughable. My family claimed they wanted to start anew and treat me better, yet even on my birthday, they still favored their adopted son. The rooftop was filled with wealthy guests, drinking expensive champagne and laughing under the fairy lights. The moment my parents saw us, they completely ignored me and called Logan over, eagerly introducing him to influential business partners and paving the way for his future career. Meanwhile, I, their biological son, was left standing alone in the corner. Audrey walked over to me, holding a glass of wine. "Ethan, go apologize to Claire and our parents today. Let's put the past behind us. You've done a lot of hurtful things recently, but if you apologize, they won't blame you anymore." I looked at her and nodded quietly. "Okay." Audrey looked relieved, a soft smile appearing on her face. "I knew you still had a good heart. Don't worry, sooner or later, Claire will change her cold attitude toward you too." I secretly sneered. In the original novel, Audrey's pattern was always the same. She would slap Ethan, and then hand him a piece of candy to make herself feel better, never truly changing her toxic behavior. A few minutes later, the host called me up to the stage to make a speech. But before I could even reach the microphone, Logan suddenly ran toward the edge of the rooftop railing, crying hysterically. "Mom! Dad, Claire! Audrey!" Logan sobbed, his voice echoing across the rooftop, drawing the attention of all the guests. I know I'm just an adopted son, and I know I'll never be as good or as loved as Ethan. I've tried so hard to be meek, to never cause any trouble, hoping I wouldn't be bullied. My mother rushed forward, her face filled with panic. "Logan, sweetie, what are you talking about? Has Ethan been bullying you again?" Claire also stepped up, her eyes glaring at me on the stage. "Logan, if he did something to you, just tell us. I will make sure he pays for it." Logan wiped his tears pitifully. "Ethan has been secretly beating me for months, warning me that if I ever told anyone, he would kill me. I can't take this torture anymore. I'm going to end my life today." He climbed onto the ledge, preparing to jump. My mother fell to her knees, crying hysterically. "Logan, please don't do this. I promise I'll punish Ethan. We'll throw him out of the family. Just please, step down. Claire nodded fiercely. Yes, Logan. We'll kick Ethan out of the house tonight. He will never hurt you again. I slowly walked down from the stage, my expression completely blank. Audrey tried to stop me, turning to Claire and our parents. Are you all insane? Are you really going to believe his words without a single shred of evidence? Ethan is your biological son. Logan looked at Audrey, crying. Audrey, I know you've always disliked me, but Ethan is clearly a monster. I walked straight past Audrey, stepped onto the ledge next to Logan, and tightly grabbed his hand. I offered him a wide, twisted grin. Come on, Logan, let's jump together. Right now. With a powerful tug, I began dragging him toward the edge of the 20-story building. Logan instantly lost all his bravado. He let out a blood-curdling shriek of pure, unadulterated terror. He struggled violently against my grip, crying so hard he choked. And to the shock of everyone watching, he actually wet his pants right there on the ledge. Are you insane, Ethan? Claire screamed, rushing forward. Let go of him. My mother wailed, clawing at her face. Let go of my son, you beast! I laughed maniacally, dragging him closer to the drop. Why are you all crying? Didn't you want me to die? I'm just taking your precious Logan with me. Peering over the edge of the massive drop, Logan's survival instinct finally crushed his lies. He fell to his knees, begging desperately. I'll say it. I'll tell the truth. Ethan never hit me. I lied. I made it all up because I wanted you all to hate him and kick him out of the family. I was jealous of him because he's your biological son. Please, Ethan, don't jump. A dead silence fell over the entire rooftop. Claire froze, her jaw dropping in utter shock. Logan, what did you just say? Logan was trembling so violently he could barely speak. The SATs? The diarrhea. It was all planned by me too. I took laxatives on purpose to frame him. I wanted you all to despise him. My parents stood frozen, their faces turning completely pale. Claire looked at Logan, her eyes filled with deep, sickening disappointment. Logan, we believed in you. We gave you everything. How could you do this to us? How could you do this to Ethan? Audrey let out a bitter, cold laugh. I told you all not to jump to conclusions without evidence. But none of you wanted to listen. Logan looked up at me, his face covered in tears and sweat, pleading, Can you please let me go now? Please? I looked down at him with disgust, chuckled softly, and then violently shoved him back onto the safe concrete of the rooftop. Before anyone could react, I turned around and climbed over the railing myself, standing on the very edge of the building. Ethan, don't! Audrey screamed, lunging forward. Her face was covered in tears. Please, listen to me. We were wrong. We wronged you so badly in the past. It was all our fault. Please, step back. Let us make it up to you. My mother took a step forward, her voice trembling with immense guilt. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I've misunderstood you all this time. Please, come back to Mom. Claire looked at me, her eyes overflowing with tears, her voice choked with regret. I'm sorry, little brother. I'm so sorry. I looked at their tearful, pleading faces and offered them one last, peaceful smile. If simple apologies were enough to heal a shattered soul, Claire, then no one in this world would ever want to end their life. I closed my eyes and let myself fall forward into the open air. But as I fell, Audrey and Claire both lunged over the railing, desperately catching my hands at the very last second. They held on with all their strength, their muscles straining, tears streaming down their faces. I'm sorry, Ethan, Audrey sobbed, her grip tightening. I promise I'll never be harsh on you again. I felt so guilty about the pesticide. I'm so thankful you didn't die. Please, let us save you. Claire cried out. Yes, Ethan. Family fights are normal. We can talk through this. We can live a good, happy life together from now on, I promise. I looked up at them, my eyes cold and detached. Let go of me. I don't want sisters like you. Despite my struggles, the security guards and guests rushed over, helping my sisters pull me back up over the railing. I had failed to die once again. Immediately after the incident, my parents locked me in a secure bedroom on the top floor of our house, removing every single sharp object, belt, and cord. They were terrified I would try again. I sat in the dark room, feeling a deep sense of regret. I shouldn't have tried to do it at the party. I should have found a quiet, completely secluded place where no one could ever find me. My thoughts drifted to Grace. I didn't want to see her before I died, because I knew that if I saw her face, I wouldn't have the courage to leave this world. But I knew that once I was gone, her painful fate in this novel would be rewritten, and she would finally be able to live a peaceful, happy life. Through the locked door, I overheard the servants whispering. Logan had been officially kicked out of the Miller family, but my parents, still harboring lingering affection for him, were secretly wire transferring him money to support his lifestyle. What a pathetic, laughable tragedy. But I didn't care anymore. At the very least, I had cleared the original Ethan's name. A few days later, Audrey came to visit me in my locked room. She sat on the edge of my bed and handed me a beautiful, expensive watch. It was the exact model the original Ethan had begged for on his 16th birthday, but back then, Audrey had bought it for Logan instead. "I'm sorry, Ethan," Audrey said softly, her eyes filled with bitterness and regret. "I've thought about everything for a very long time, and I finally understand how terrible my mistakes were. These past years must have been an absolute living hell for you. Claire and we completely failed you." I looked at the shiny watch in my hand, felt absolutely nothing, and casually tossed it into the trash can near the desk. Audrey flinched, a fresh wave of tears spilling from her eyes. "I've been thinking about our childhood recently," she whispered. "You used to tease and prank me all the time back then. It was because you wanted my attention, because you liked me, right?" I remained silent, but my mind drifted back to the novel's original plot. Indeed, the original Ethan had loved Audrey the most because she was the only sister who would actually sit and listen to him talk, the only one who didn't immediately report him to our parents when he played video games. He loved her, but being young, he had only known how to show it through childish teasing. "If you don't answer, I'll take it as you admitting it," Audrey said, a tearful, hopeful smile breaking through her grief. "I used to hate you for it, but now I understand. Second sister apologies to you, Ethan. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to not hate me anymore." That night, I decided it was time. I managed to break the lock on the window, quietly slipped past the guard outside my door, and escaped into the cold night. But as soon as I stepped onto the dark street, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Grace. She had been waiting for me. She rushed forward, throwing her arms around me, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Ethan, you can't die," she sobbed into my chest. "Everything is out in the open now. Your family knows the truth. We can leave this town tomorrow, go to university, and start a completely new life together. There are only 3 days left before classes start." I hugged her back, feeling the final lingering warmth of the original Ethan's soul. "Okay," I lied softly. "I'll go with you." We went back to her apartment. While she was in the kitchen preparing some food, I quietly walked into her bathroom. I took out the original Ethan's bank card, which contained his entire life savings of $1 million, and placed it gently on the sink counter, writing the password on a sticky note next to it. It was my final gift to her. Then, I quietly climbed out of the bathroom window and slipped into the darkness, determined to find a quiet place to end my life. But as I walked down a deserted alleyway, a heavy blow struck the back of my head. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair inside a dusty, abandoned warehouse. Standing in front of me was Logan, his face twisted into a maniacal, deranged grin. "Ethan, I'm going to make you understand that our family will always care about me more than you." Logan laughed hysterically. He walked over and strapped a heavy, ticking bomb to my chest. Then, he tied himself to a nearby pillar, strapping an identical-looking bomb to his own chest. He had set up a twisted game to force our family to choose between us. He was completely, utterly insane. I looked at the ticking timer and closed my eyes, completely indifferent. We were both going to die in the explosion anyway, which was a perfectly fine end for me. Within 20 minutes, Claire, Audrey, and our parents arrived at the warehouse, guided by a GPS tracker Logan had intentionally sent them. When they saw the bombs strapped to our chests, their faces filled with sheer, paralyzed horror. Logan immediately began to cry pitifully. "Claire, Audrey, please save me. I don't want to die. He kidnapped me and strapped this to me." Claire rushed forward but stopped when she saw a large warning sign painted on the wall. Only one person can be saved. If you deactivate one bomb, the other will instantly detonate. Audrey immediately screamed, "We have to save Ethan! He's our brother." But Claire froze, her brow furrowing in deep, agonizing hesitation as she looked between Logan and me, unable to make a choice. I let out a soft chuckle. "Don't waste your time, Claire. Don't save me. I was planning to die tonight anyway." Logan panicked, realizing his sick game wasn't going his way. "Claire, please, save me. I'm your brother too." Finally, Claire made her decision. She looked at Logan with an icy, resolute gaze. "Logan, stop crying. Ethan is our real brother. We can only save him." She walked toward me, reaching for my bomb's diffusal wire. Seeing his plan fail, Logan's face twisted in pure, demonic rage. He easily slipped his hands out of the loose ropes, revealing that his bindings were a complete sham, and pulled a sharp knife from his pocket. He charged toward me with a wild scream. "Since you all love him so much, I'll make sure he dies right now." Before my sisters could react, Logan plunged the knife deep into my chest, straight into my heart. Claire let out a blood-curdling scream and kicked Logan away with all her might, sending him crashing into the concrete. Audrey rushed to my side, her hands covering the wound as blood gushed out. "Ethan, no please, I'm taking you to the hospital. Just stay awake. Please, hold on." Audrey sobbed, her tears mixing with my blood. But I couldn't hear her anymore. The darkness swallowed me whole. I opened my eyes to find myself floating in an entirely pitch-black, silent space. A cold, mechanical voice echoed around me. "Host, you have successfully fulfilled the original owner's final wish. You have cleared his name and exposed the protagonist's lies. You may now return to your original world." I looked around the empty void. "What about the original owner of this body? Where is he?" The system responded. "He and Grace will be transmigrated into a peaceful, parallel world. They will find each other, fall in love, and live a long, happy life together. Wishing you a smooth journey ahead, host." "Thank you," I whispered. The moment the words left my lips, a brilliant white light flashed, blinding me. When I opened my eyes again, the bright, harsh fluorescent lights of my office building met my gaze. Outside the large glass window, the busy city traffic of my real world was bustling, and my coworkers were frantically typing on their keyboards and making phone calls. I leaned back in my office chair and let out a long, peaceful sigh. My mundane corporate life as a wage slave was about to start again, but for the first time in a very long time, I felt completely at peace. Extra 1. In the days following Ethan's tragic death, the Miller family fell into complete ruin. Audrey, consumed by an unbearable, suffocating guilt, resigned from her teaching job, shaved her head, and entered a secluded convent, dedicating the rest of her life to quiet prayer and repentance as a nun. She could never forgive herself for kicking Ethan and throwing the pesticide at him. She realized that if she hadn't suggested adopting Logan all those years ago, none of this tragedy would have ever happened. She spent her days weeping in her cold cell, her heart forever broken. Logan was arrested at the scene of the crime, charged with first-degree murder, and after a swift trial, he was sentenced to death. Claire fell into a state of severe, clinical depression. She refused to leave her room, spending every single day sitting by the window, staring blankly out at the city. She often wondered how different their lives would have been if she had only shown Ethan a shred of the love he had desperately begged for. If only she had seen Logan's manipulative nature sooner. But there were no ifs in the real world, and she was left to rot in her own silent regret, wishing for a do-over that would never come. Extra 2. Grace moved to the South City to attend university. She was incredibly wealthy now, though she didn't quite understand why. All she knew was that her mother had found a black premium bank card containing $1 million in their bathroom, with the account registered under Grace's name and the password written on a note. Grace had used the money to pay for her tuition and a comfortable apartment. One evening, while out having dinner with her college roommates, Grace noticed a bald woman sitting alone in the corner of the diner, staring blankly into a cup of coffee. The woman looked strangely familiar. Grace walked over, her brow furrowing. "Excuse me, do I know you?" The bald woman looked up, her eyes hollow and filled with deep, endless sorrow. "Grace," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I'm Audrey, Ethan's second sister." Immediately, Grace's heart clutched with a strange, icy pain. Audrey reached into her coat and pulled out a worn, yellowed piece of paper. "I found this confession letter in Ethan's room after he passed. He wrote about you, about how much he loved you. You loved him too, didn't you?" The moment Audrey spoke his name, a flood of repressed, agonizing memories rushed back into Grace's mind. She remembered the rooftop, the blood, and the boy she loved more than life itself. Tears instantly streamed down her face. She glared at Audrey, her voice trembling with a cold, unforgiving fury. "Every single one of you in that family is responsible for his death. You tortured him, you broke him, and you drove him to the edge." Audrey fell to her knees, sobbing bitterly. "I know. I'm so sorry, Grace. Please. People who make mistakes like yours don't deserve forgiveness," Grace said coldly. She turned on her heel and walked out of the diner, leaving Audrey crying on the floor. As Grace stepped out into the rainy night, the world around her suddenly began to blur and spin. The streetlights stretched into long lines of white light, and everything went completely black. When she opened her eyes again, the rain had stopped. She was standing in the hallway of a familiar high school. The golden evening sun was streaming through the windows, casting a warm, peaceful glow over the lockers. And there, leaning against the wall with a gentle, handsome smile on his face, was Ethan. He looked at her, his eyes bright and full of life, and held out his hand. "Hey, Grace, ready to go to college?" Grace let out a tearful, joyous laugh, rushed forward, and tightly grabbed his hand. "Welcome to the parallel world. This is the new beginning for you and Ethan."